lot of people are very well connected, emotionally connected with their pets, right?
Absolutely.
So while designing spaces, any space, so how you make a balance of having it human friendly as well as pet friendly?
So Tushar, you obviously know, like I've had a pet, and I can absolutely understand the emotion of having a pet in space. And let me tell you, uh, any client who ever has a pet, more often than not, the pet becomes a center point of designing the entire space.
Okay.
Whether it's a cat or a dog, typically these two, because other pets are slightly more easier to maintain. They don't have so much of do's and don'ts while designing a space. Okay, so I'll limit this conversation to having a pet cat and a pet dog. Typically, of course, especially cats, they have very sharp claws. You'll find them scratching onto the sofa. For example, when I had my dog, every mark that he left on the home, I was very proud of. Okay, but that's me as an owner. I understand that there is a transition of a visitor versus also a designer in this space. So as designer, I would always, of course, making sure, firstly, the well-being of the pet in the space is very important. And for cities like Mumbai, where the houses are very small, whatever best we can do in terms of materiality, I strongly recommend we do, because at the end of the day, how much ever you love the pet, they can't talk back to you, in a language that you will understand verbally. So it's your duty as a designer and as a pet parent to give them a very sustainable environment where their growth is as good as your own child, so whether it's their whether it's their bone, whether it's their spine, everything that a pet can have issue with in that species can be dealt with if you've used correct materials in space. All right.
Okay.
So for that, the flooring plays the most important role. All right. Coming to fabric, there are certain fabrics that we do not recommend. For example, as much as we love jute, we will not recommend jute for a pet or a pet house, simply because pets shed. Okay, and with their claws, they can always tear open the fabric. So a softer, closely knit fabric is far more advisable. So in those terms, again, in terms of color, there are, textures. So we pay attention to those. Second is, when there are pets, we take extra care about plants, because there are certain plants that are absolutely toxic to the animals. So to be able to have that knowledge that, all right, if you have a dog or a cat, a certain plant should not be in the vicinity, and if it is, then it should be out of the reach of the pet. So all of that is taken care of. Now this is very pet centric. When it comes to the human centric experience, we then start playing with colors. Okay, that all right, if we can't play a lot with texture, we can play a lot with pattern and colors.
Okay.
So we introduce more of those. Then we work on how air conditioning or dehumidifier or extractors, where you can vacuum the house, how effectively you're using that in space, because a lot of pet parents also complain a lot about allergy. I've been one of them. So how can you control the environment that you are comfortable as well as the pet is comfortable, is where this where design really comes into play, and we always try to balance that out. So yes, any house that has a pet is my favorite house and I love designing them. And of course, we need to find a balance on in terms of aesthetic, but the pet always takes the forefront in that case. So the decision is kept taking the pet in mind.
Nice. And I'm sure this will help a lot of people who are having their pets.
Absolutely.
Swank way, that's how we roll.